Hello everyone, today you will hear an interesting story. Irina has lived in the village since childhood, almost never leaving her parents are hardworking and decent people. Her father spent his entire life driving a combine. Harvester working for a local farmer, her mother worked as a school cleaner in general. It was an ordinary rural family. The girl graduated from the local school with honors and entered a pedagogical college in the regional center. For the rural and calm Irina's student life began to be fun, full of various interesting events. She was best friends with her dorm roommate. Ola, her friend, was from a neighboring regional center, had always lived in the city and knew how to have the most fun. It was under Ola's guidance that Irina first tried alcohol, changed her hairstyle, and started wearing bright makeup. The two of them often visited bars, cafes, and nightclubs. In one of these clubs, Irina met Artem. The guy was about 5 years older than her. Artem was already working, had very wealthy parents, and was a leader in his group. Young man, he was also very handsome. Of course, Irina fell in love with him at first sight. This was not surprising, because Artem looked stylish, carried himself confidently, and seemed to have no problem that he could not solve. The girl tried her best to make the young man finally notice her. She danced nearby, swaying her slender body. Sexily, she laughed loudly, looking at Artem, but it was all in vain. The guy paid no attention to Irina. Another week of school passed, but the girl had only dreams about Artem in her head. She really wanted to marry him and stay in the city. On a weekend evening, Irina and her friend went to a nightclub. As usual, she was hoping to see the boy again and was very surprised when she noticed him sitting alone. At a table, she gathered all her courage and sat down with Artem. This Irina is quite pretty, simple and naive. We could live with her as a family for a while. The guy shared his thoughts with the girl, noting that this marriage would be a sham if she agreed. After the wedding, there would be no obligations between them, and they would be free to live as they wanted. Of course, they would have to keep everything a secret and pretend to be a loving and happy couple in front of his parents. Irina was over the moon. She never expected to marry such a wealthy guy right away. Of course, she agreed to all his conditions, thinking that in the end she would be able to make Artem fall in love with her. 2 months passed. The young couple lived in a brand new 4-room apartment that Artem's parents had given them. Of course, at first, they were shocked by the choice of their only son, as they had hoped that his chosen one would also come from a wealthy family. But in the end, they came to terms with the fact that their daughter-in-law was a rural and ordinary girl, especially since it was very clear how much she loved Artem. Irina and Artem behaved like young people in love. He would gently hug the girl whenever someone was around. But at home, when they were alone, the man paid little attention to his wife. In the evenings, he went out with his friends and often had intimate relationships with other beauties. Irina knew all about it because Artem told her about his dates. At first, she was offended and cried, but then she gradually got used to this family life because the boyfriend had warned her from the beginning that this would happen. 2 more years passed. Irina, accustomed to luxury, now looked stylish and brilliant. She worked in Artem's father's company, doing a good job. She had everything she had dreamed of as a student, but her husband never fell in love with her, despite all Irina's efforts. This made her very sad because she loved him very much. At some point, Irina had an obsession with the idea that having a child could change everything in their relationship. She believed that when she saw her future son or daughter, her husband would immediately change for the better. But there was one problem. Artem was against becoming a father. Their sex had always been protected from his wife's unwanted pregnancy. So the woman resorted to a well-known trick. She carefully pierced a contraceptive object with a needle. Irina's plan was successful. A few months later, she got pregnant by her husband. But Artem was not happy about this news at all. On the contrary, he was very angry. He shouted at his wife that they hadn't agreed on this, and that it was definitely not his child because he was always careful. Irina had to admit to her husband that she had damaged the condom on purpose. But he still didn't believe her. At the end of the argument, Artem added that he would never be a real father to this baby. In the evening, upset, Irina called Artem's parents. She told them about the pregnancy, but kept silent about their son's attitude to the news. The future grandparents were very happy to hear the long-awaited news. They promised to come back from vacation as soon as possible to celebrate the good news. But a few days later, a terrible tragedy happened. Artem's parents died in a plane crash on their way back to their home country. Irina was in a state of grief because she had fallen in love with them. These people always treated her well, helped her with advice, and next to them, Artem treated her like a loving husband. and now she's left without the support she needs. A week later, after a difficult funeral, Artem, who was the sole heir to his parents' fortune, told Irina that they would have to divorce. No matter how much she begged him not to, Artem stubbornly stood his ground. After the divorce, pregnant Irina returned home to her native village. Her ex-husband fired her from his company. The girl had some of her money in a bank account and 2 suitcases. At home, only her mother was waiting for her, because her father had recently died of complications from a lung disease. Irina was very depressed after what Artem had done to her, but she still loved him. A little more time passed. Irina began to get used to life in the village and got a job at a local school, as her maternity leave was still a long way off, and she did not want to live off her mother. There were about 15 teachers at the school. All of them were older, except for one physical education teacher. The man had been working there for 3 years after moving from another district. His name was Serhiy, and he was 10 years older than Irina. The physical education teacher took an immediate liking to Irina. He was still single, as he had not yet met the one and only person he wanted to spend his life with. But meeting a new employee brought bright colors to his gray, everyday life. Serhiy immediately began to pay attention to Irina, and after a while, they were already dating. The man knew that the girl was pregnant, but it didn't bother him because a lot of things happen in life. After a month of dating, Serhiy proposed marriage. Strangely enough, Irina agreed right away because she knew it would be hard to be alone with a baby. She would be able to control this man as she pleased. After a modest wedding ceremony, Irina became the hostess in Serhiy's large house. The man did his best to please his young wife, with whom he fell deeply in love. Serhiy's ability to bake a variety of delicious cakes came as a surprise to the woman. Almost every evening, he would prepare delicacies for Irina to please her. The couple drove their own car to and from work. Irina finally felt loved, but it didn't bring her much joy. She still couldn't forget Artem, and he was the only one in her dreams. Of course, she was grateful to Sergei for her current life, but she still didn't feel happy. When Irina gave birth to their daughter Masha, Serhiy felt like the happiest man in the world. He did not care that he was not the girl's biological father. He would do everything to make sure his daughter always loved and respected him. A few months passed, and Irina decided to return to work without waiting for her maternity leave to end. She did not want to stay at home, wash diapers, and cook. She didn't tell Serhiy about it, but she was exhausted by the baby's constant crying. 2 days ago, a former friend called her and offered her a job at a private lyceum in the regional center. So Irina started preparing to leave for the city, and Serhiy would stay with her daughter, and her mother would help him. Of course, the man didn't want to let his beloved go, but he couldn't keep her at home either. At first, Irina came home every weekend. But after 6 months, her visits became less and less frequent. Serhiy tried to talk to his wife about it, but she kept making excuses. According to her, she was spending a lot of energy on her career, waiting for her next promotion, so she was rarely home. But the fact was that Irina started living with Artem again. As it turned out, he lost his company because he failed to manage it properly. He still owned 2 apartments. One was his, and the other was the one he inherited from his parents. He rented his parents' apartment to tenants, and that was all the money he had. But recently he found out that his parents had opened a bank account while they were alive and put money in it for their future grandchildren. During this time, they had accumulated a considerable amount of money that would have made Artem's life much easier. But the main condition was to show the bank employee a document from independent experts confirming his paternity when withdrawing cash. Artem was thinking about how to outsmart the bank when Irina came to see him. It was then that the man remembered that she was pregnant with his child. He began to take an interest in the child and kept repeating that he was very lucky. The woman was touched by such a manifestation of interest in her daughter by her ex-husband, and she stayed with him. They lived together again, as they had before, only now Artem was much more attentive and sensitive to Irina. He started talking about how they should get married again and live as a family, and at night he gave her such pleasure that she had never known before. Irina agreed with everything Artem said to her, dreaming of a happy life with her beloved. There was only one small problem. Sergei. She needed to tell him about the divorce and that she was taking her daughter away. For a long time, Irina did not dare to have this conversation, but her beloved Artem persistently persuaded her to do so. When she arrived home, Sergei was preparing dinner for his beloved daughter. Her grandmother was playing with the child, so no one interrupted the couple. Irina confessed to her husband that she had been cheating on him with Artem all this time, and now she wanted to divorce him and take the girl with her. Sergei was in a state of shock at this confession. He sat at the table with his hands on his head, wondering what he had done wrong for the woman he loved. His emotions changed, one after another, and gradually the feeling of powerlessness turned into anger. Standing up, he coldly told the traitor that after such meanness, he no longer wanted to see her in his home. The divorce papers will be ready tomorrow, but Irina will not see her daughter again. It is he. Sergei Tit is the child's official father, and he will deprive her of maternal rights for not taking proper care of the girl. After making his decision, her husband angrily pushed Irina out of the house and ordered her never to return. The upset woman returned to Artem and told him everything that had happened. But he was also angry because he realized that he would not get his parents' money soon. He didn't need Irina anymore, so he kicked her out of his house as well. That's how the woman was left alone. Even her mother, when she called today, scolded Irina a lot and did not want to see her either. The girl was walking across a huge bridge, thinking about her life. Only now she realized that Artem had used her and was not going to live with her. She felt so cozy and calm with Sergei. He loved her very much and cared about her, but she hadn't appreciated it before. But now it was too late to change anything. He would never forgive her for her betrayal and meanness. The woman looked down from the bridge, thinking that maybe she should commit suicide to avoid feeling any more despair, pain, and loneliness. But Irina did not have the strength of mind to do so, and crying bitterly, she went to her temporary home where she would now live without her husband and daughter. Dear listeners, your support is very important to us. If you like our story, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's very motivating for us. We need your feedback to improve our content.